always been a Dabo guy, at least on this show. But to me, this year feels more different than 2024. One of the first ever videos I did on this show was about Clemson, and I predicted that they would have exactly 10 wins, which is cool in hindsight because that's exactly what happened. They ended up winning the ACC and at least making a college football playoff appearance. And now, fast forward to 2025, and it's just been incredible to seeing the development that they have. I mean, you go towards the beginning of the season, they get their ass whooped by Georgia. Tons of question marks there, especially with Dabo's refusal to use the transfer portal. Everybody was kind of wondering, well, okay, well, they would just take a step back. And granted, that's a natural conclusion to have. But at the same time, the one thing you got to give Clemson credit for, I don't care what you think about Dabo, I don't care what you think about him as a coach, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, the guy is a freaking winner and he finds ways to win. And that's exactly what he did this year. He maximized the guys that he had. Him and Garrett Riley were able to develop Kate Klubnik enough to the point where he is going to be in the NFL one day, number one. But two, I would argue he's a really early Heisman candidate for 2025. The guy simply balled out. Even if you go towards the beginning of the season and towards the end of it too, very high octane offense, finding receivers down the field, feeding Phil Mofa when necessary, and most importantly, not turning over the ball, which was his Achilles heel the past season or two. And you sit there and say to yourself, hey, I believe he's still a junior. Don't quote me on that. So he's a junior, 34.7 points a game, and you're returning a large majority of the crew that you have from last year. You have Antonio Williams coming back, Bryant Wesco, and TJ Moore, who are all going to be really solid contributors, both on the outside and vertically as well, which is something that I think we're going to see more of from Clemson this coming season. But at the same time, too, you have to look at this team defensively, and they were able to poach Tom Allen from Penn State, which, by the way, I think that's going to go down as one of the best hires this entire coaching cycle. And the reason why I say that is Tom Allen is one of those guys. Say what you will about his run in Indiana, but the guy knows how to freaking coach X's and O's. And the other thing I really admire about him is he's a player's coach, and he understands how to get the most out of the players that he has. And I think that's in many ways that's the whole vision at Clemson anyway, is saying, hey, if you buy into this program for 4 or 5 seasons, we're gonna make you someone who's a legit football player, somebody who could have aspirations to go to the NFL, and most importantly, getting your college degree from a fairly good school academically. So when you put all those things together, it seems like a really good fit for Tom Allen, because Indiana is also not the easiest place to recruit. So that's another part that I'm fairly intrigued about too, because obviously he, aside from making what is it, almost $3 million a season, that's obviously a no-brainer in terms of taking that. But outside of that, you say to yourself too, hey, you're closer to your family now. You're playing for what I would argue should be the favorite going into 2025. You can either argue Miami or Clemson for the ACC. And when you have so much of your returning cast coming back on offense, yeah, sure, has the defense struggled a little bit last season? Absolutely. They had their moments. I would say, particularly on the defensive line, I think it's somewhere where they could be proving immensely too, particularly with some of the yards after catch issues that we've been seeing. And also too, they could be a little bit healthier too. I mean, you see the stat down there, 5.6 yards allowed per snap too. So there's a little bit of a balance between, some of these bigger gains where they were just giving up way too many explosive plays to the point where it would just kind of take them out of contention. And even too, I think they're gonna have a chip on their shoulder too when you lose to South Carolina in the Palmetto Bowl game. That's always a game that's going to be on Clemson's schedule every year, and one that I think that they're going to be itching to get back. And when you look at Clemson moving forward now, think Garrett Riley's going to be in a good spot where you have the majority of the guys that you have there who are necessary. And in many ways, Clemson has always proved the doubters wrong. And say what you want about the transfer portal, or say that maybe he's exactly stuck in his ways, let's say, which I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I think at the same time, too, that's also a selling point of Clemson in the sense of, okay, you're not necessarily going to pay me, tons of money from your collective or whatever, and you're not necessarily going to go out there and have a top 10 recruiting class every season. But but at the same time, they believe in the guys that they recruit, and they're gonna train them, they're gonna develop them, and they're gonna be high character guys. Because even when you look at the stat down here, this is statistically speaking one of the worst recruiting classes, at least statistically speaking, that Dabo's ever had. And there are a couple different arguments you can make about that, but to me, what it says is he's confident with the players that he has, and rightfully so. He should be. The majority of the starters that he's going to have next year are juniors and seniors, high upperclassmen. I mean, when you sit there and you have guys like Cade Klubnik, Sammy Brown, you got Woods that are all expected to come back in 2025, and they're loaded with veterans. You have an ACC who I think is wide open too, and I feel like I've been saying that time and time again about the ACC, about how wide open it is. But you can say the same thing about the Big 12 and maybe even the SEC to a bigger degree too. But that's what's been great about going to this college football off season now, is being able to sit back and look at these programs from a more snowball wide open lens here, because Clemson is at the point now in their journey where really anything less than 10 wins is not going to cut it anymore. They're at the point where it's 10, 11, 12, it's 10, 11 wins, a playoff appearance, and ideally a national championship. And to me, it's this team is on the rise. I think they are going to be a national championship contender. I know it's maybe a bit premature to kind of throw out national championship contenders right here and now, but I do think when we look back and watch some spring ball and look back in August, I can confidently sit there and say to myself, as long as these ACC defenses, if they don't figure out Cade Klubnik and he continues to not turn over the ball, and he can get the ball to these veteran receivers who I think they're going to have to rely on a lot more, given that Mofa graduated and their running back room isn't necessarily the strongest in the country, because I mean, yeah, granted he was injured a little bit too, so they didn't run the ball as much as they have in previous seasons. But you're at the point now where there are, and by the way, when I said the worst recruiting class, they were only 27th. It's not like we're talking about them being 55th or something. They're 27th, which is the worst since 2010. And also that's the fun fact. That's the last time they ever had a losing record, when they went 6-7 back in 2010. So overall too, there's some intrigue about this team, particularly within the recruiting class as well, but most importantly with the team that they already have. And all things considered, they are in a perfect spot to strike again under Dabo, when you have all this kind of coming together. But my biggest question mark really for me is going to be Clemson versus Miami. I think that's going to be the biggest intrigue for me. Can whose defense is really going to show up more? Because I imagine if Clemson and Miami do get a chance to play next year, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but if they do, damn, dude, that's going to be a really big shootout and something that I think is going to be a lot of fun.